and what that means for us. So luckily y'all are halfway through this presentation. We're now looking towards the future, what's going to happen next, and we're going to look at the future of TCP as well. So what is TCP going to do in the future? As we look at what it does now, it currently doesn't handle all the application's needs. An application actually handles some of the processing burdens itself. And in the future, there's a push for some that maybe TCP can start to handle some of these application loads that are actually down in the lower layers of the protocol stack. And then second, congestion control. Currently, the big signal system that we use to know if there's congestion is packet loss. I mean, that's the main model right now. But it doesn't hold up well on your high-speed, high-bandwidth networks because that's when other sources of loss, such as packet transmission error, start to be the primary limitation of throughput. So we have to look at how to account for these decreasing noise of congestion, of packet loss congestion. That's going to be an issue that we really have to look at in the future. Also, for network performance issues, when you start yielding interconnected complex interactions, you start having unforeseen consequences. So basically, complexity yields poor performance. In many cases, they say network performance is more an art than a science. You have to account for all the hosts, not just the line speed between everything, but all the hosts, all the routers, all the peripheral devices that are on your network, because that's going to affect your top speed. And your application itself depends on the transport network and link layers. So if you're having a slow access in your application, it might not just be the application, it could be anything between those 2 points, and you got to find out what the bottleneck is. So what are some of the performance problems in computer networks? A lot of times with legacy systems, you start having structural resource imbalance. So you got your high-speed gigabit internet, except it's plugged into that 1982 Commodore 64. That's been sitting down there forever, and nobody knows what it does, except you know that if it somehow gets unplugged, your whole network crashes. So you've got to try modernizing your devices. Secondly, you got 2 types of overloads. You have your broadcast storm, which is basically a broadcast message is sent out, and every host tries to respond to that message, and that just floods your network, and it causes all your good traffic to be lost in buffers or it gets dropped, as everything's trying to say, hey, what's wrong with this broadcast message? Or you have a basic electrical outage. Your power goes out, and all your host systems try to reboot, and they all try to hit the file server or your login server, and they just overwhelm the server, and then you start having packet losses. Or in virtual machines, the bigger problem that we're looking at now is system tuning. A lot of times your computers have the right resources, the host machine, but it's running like 6 virtual machines, and those virtual machines aren't configured properly. They don't have enough bandwidth. They don't have enough RAM installed. Their virtual processors are not configured right. And so you don't have enough buffer space. So when it's getting bombarded by all the hosts, you start having systems drop and lose it. Or timeouts. If you set your timeouts too short, then you have too many retransmissions. If you set it too long, you're waiting until that timeout occurs before you get your retransmission. And so that's where it comes into an art. There's no set rule book, no set plays on what's specific good for small, medium, or large networks. It all has to be custom to your own network. So how do you measure network performance and try to figure out how to customize your network? First of all, you got to have a large sample size. It plays a lot in statistics. Large sample size reduces your uncertainty in the measured median standard deviation. In statistics, that's usually a sample size of 30, but on computers, you can actually do it 1,000 machines or 1,000 different surveys running across over time. But you want to get these surveys to give you representative samples at different locations and times to try to get an accurate picture of your network over the course of a day or a week. You don't just want to do it all at once. Caching can wreak havoc on your network. If you have it to say like how fast would it take me to access my web page, once it goes out the first time, it'll cache in the memory, and the next time for the rest of the test, it'll probably still go into the cache instead of actually trying to touch the web page. So your numbers will be skewed, so just be aware of that. Unexpected. There's lots of unexpected when you're running network tests. You want the ideal network as your baseline when you know nobody's on it, but that really doesn't happen. No matter what time of day, there's always something that can happen. Unexpected video calls, automated services, your backups are triggered in one group, or your system's hosts are